Ever wish you had someone to talk to anytime, anywhere, no matter what you're going through? Meet PsychPal, your 24/7 AI companion designed to help you process your thoughts, calm your mind, and keep you moving forward. Chat anytime during a panic attack, on a restless night, or just when you need to vent. Prefer talking instead of typing? Try voice journaling. PsychPal listens, transcribes, and truly understands. You can even upload screenshots of tough conversations and it'll help you unpack how they made you feel. PsychPal keeps life organized too. It can add appointments to your calendar, track your mood, and even summarize your sessions for your therapist so you'll never lose progress. Plus, built in crisis resources are always just one click away. It's a privacy first, constantly evolving, made to complement your professional care, not replace it. Ready to try it out? Head over to the link in this episode and use my code Pete at checkout to get 20% off your first month subscription to PsychPal. PsychPal, because your mind deserves a companion too. There we go. I think that's the one I like. We got it. We got it. Boom.
What do I do when life's so meaningless? What do I do when I just ain't feeling this? Anyone feeling this? Anyone feeling this? What do I do when life's so meaningless? What do I do when I just ain't feeling this? Anyone feeling this? Anyone feeling this? Meaningless, meaningless, meaningless. Desires not to exist. What do I do when life's so meaningless? What do I do when I just ain't feeling this? Anyone feeling this? Anyone feeling this? What do I do when life's so meaningless? What do I do when I just ain't feeling this? Anyone feeling this? Anyone feeling this? Meaningless, meaningless, meaningless. Desires not to exist.
Welcome into another exciting episode of Pete for Society. Before we get started today, let's give a shout out to my partners over at PsychPal, guys. I have a link in the description of this episode. Go click on the link, get your 7-day free trial. Use the code Pete at checkout. Get yourself 20% off the first month subscription. With that being said, my guest today is the owner of Mind Over Borderline Therapy. She's a registered psychotherapist. She has a master's in counseling psychology. Please welcome in the one, the only, Melanie Goldman. Melanie, thank you so much for being here. I know this has been a long time coming, man, but I'm excited to have you here.
I know. I'm so excited to hang out with you, my buddy.
Right?
Yeah, I know. I feel like we're just always like, we have to meet, we have to hang out, and now we get to do it.
Right.
Yeah. So
So, Melanie, for
exciting.
everybody that doesn't know who you are, give them a little shout out. I know you're associated with Zanny from the BPD bunch. I know that's how we connected originally because when I interviewed her, she was fantastic. We had a great time with her.
Yeah.
So, why don't you let everybody else know a little more about yourself?
I always go, oh no, how long is my intro supposed to be? So about a decade ago, I was diagnosed with BPD and a whole amalgamation of who knows what, from depression and anxiety and binge eating and a few other things. And kind of from there, I decided I'm going to go on a journey to figure this out. It was very scary in the beginning of it. And so I kind of went through DBT, went through different therapists, went through different groups. And it was very scary in the beginning. I talk about this on different podcasts. So to kind of not bore everybody, I believe truly in individualized healing and individualized care. And so on that journey, I went through a shit ton of different experiences for myself. And it wasn't just about DBT, but in the beginning, from different therapists and where I was from, I had to figure out what did that mean for me in a world that did not accept BPD and still, let's be honest, is not really. And
I don't think they understand what it is still. That even though we have these great things like cell phones, we don't use them for
yeah,
things like that. We don't look up to see what it is people like yourself deal with, And I think the great thing though was when I found the BPD bunch was it was interesting because you showed that everybody has different symptoms of it, Like not everybody has the same thing. And that's a big thing for me. So for people to understand, it's just because you may have the same diagnosis I do, it's different for people. You know what I mean? Like for you, it's different. For me, it would be different. For somebody else, it's different. And I love that. That's what I loved about the whole thing when we first met Zanny, because I was like, hey, listen, would you be interested in coming on, talking about it? Because not a lot of people knew what that was. Heck, I didn't even know what it was really that much until somebody had said something to me about it in the beginning of the show. And then we had Dr. Jen Bellinger, the one of the experts in BBT, come on and things like that. So it was really fun to have her on. And then we had Zanny come on and talk about it too. And it was interesting what the whole concept was, just like showing people that, just because you have the same diagnosis doesn't mean you deal with the same things.
Not at all. And I really stress that to people. I stress that not just in recovery journey, in the fact that it's not just a BPD thing. This is an everyday thing.
Hmm.
And we look at everybody's lives through such a thin lens and such a thin perspective. And you just mentioned phones. Let's be honest about phones. They can be such a beautiful thing, but it's such a disaster. We live through such a minuscule perspective of what life could truly be when we just step outside of a phone. It's
Hmm.
beautiful you and me could connect on a laptop or a technological advancement like this, but at the same time, let's step out of it and really feel. And half the journey with anxiety and the symptoms of BPD is feeling versus thinking. And what we use with our thinking brain is such a small perspective that we are all the same. We are not even close to the same, not even whether as a diagnosis, an individual perspective. And so I try to not challenge people, because challenging somebody is actually degrading for a person with a diagnosis. I try to help them, and I try to zoom back in that perspective and say, hey, maybe just like dialectic therapy, we try to see a path of two things opposing. And can we look at the middle of this? I try, whether it's dialectics or whether it's just spirituality or whether it's perspective change. What is it that is really supporting your opinion that it has to be this way? Why? Why is it that way? And are we so gung ho on keeping it that way because it's very scary to live in a happy way because we've only known this way? And honestly, this isn't a BPD thing. A lot of people, and this isn't to put them down, are comfortable being uncomfortable. It's more comfortable to stay that way. It's comfortable. I'm used to it. I don't see it any other way. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Let's go with that for a bit. So
So my question though to you now is going to be: is that psychology has always been a big thing for you? I mean, because I know you recently found out it wasn't right away you knew that you had BD. You found it later on though, but you're a registered psychotherapist. You've masters in counseling psychology. You've got an impressive resume, needless to say. And then mind over borderline therapy, you have a plethora of different things that you guys offer there, which is really cool to be honest, because you cover a lot of things. So
yeah, I mean, so it's funny. People will ask me that because that's a really good question, actually. When I was a little girl and growing up, I was always what my family would call therapizing people. I don't love this word. Like, it's stigmatizing in itself to most counselors. Like, I'm not therapizing you. I'm just giving you some advice, I swear. And so I've always been doing that my whole life, or coaching. It was just for me. I was always affiliated with music. I was in the music industry most of my
yeah,
life, or industry. I was doing what you would call more professional singing or putting out music. And then in the interim, I did do my honors in psych at Western. And I was like, I think I'm going to become a counselor, but I'm probably too dumb. I'm probably too this. I'm probably too, at the same time of doing music. It was this moment, and we all have revelational moments, that I really realized when somebody said, I think it was, I was thinking about becoming Linehan certified, and I realized I didn't want to do that, but I wanted to work with people with BPD. No shade to anybody who's a BPD coach. I just really saw that I wanted to be able to bridge becoming a psychotherapist as well as being able to work with certain ethical obligations. I needed to become a registered psychotherapist under the CRPO. And with just doing coaching, that held a lot of ethics back, and the questions you get. I don't love rules and obligations. Look at me. Do I look like somebody who follows all rules and
right,
obligations? I'm
exactly.
really against the grain. But at the same time, too, with coaching, it left me with very little room to be able to work with the clientele I wanted. So while doing music and going through so many different system changes, I was like, I got to make a quick decision. I don't believe in age, but people kept saying, you're getting older. You're
Yeah,
getting older.
yeah.
Just like my Jewish friend, you need to have a kid soon. I'm like, okay, fuck off, everybody. So it got to the point where I was like, I gotta make some decisions here. And one was go back to school. And this was during COVID. And so I was going to go to in person. I was like, fuck that. I'm not going to school in person. Uh, yeah, that was scary too, but I ended
Oh,
up
I
going
bet
to
with COVID
online school.
especially. So, because COVID brought a lot of people's, mental disorders forward too. A lot of people didn't realize it because they were
Yes.
so busy because that's how they were basically ignoring it because they're like, well, I'm too busy to even think about this. And then when they were stuck being in isolation, a lot of things came out and a lot of people were just like, oh, well, now I have all these problems. What do I do with them? And, in that same sense, somebody asked me this in another interview, said like, how do I feel about people that with their diagnosis. I'm like, my thing is that I don't like people that take their diagnosis and act like it's a crutch. It's like it's just something you deal with. It's not identifying you as a person. You know what I mean? You're still me. I'm still Pete. You're still Melanie. You know what I'm saying? Just because we deal with certain things doesn't mean that identifies me as a person. And I really think that people sometimes take and run with it. And I don't like it because it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Because people always associate like people with BPD as being very difficult to deal with. I'm like, but did you really take time to look at the other side of the coin to see if that person deals with or how to better support them as a partner? Probably not. Honestly, most of them didn't. They just thought that, oh, they're just difficult, this and that. But is it really that you're being difficult, or is it that you didn't take time to understand the other side of the coin, which being a good partner would be one of those things to do?
And I mean, I love what you're saying, and there is a truth to everything. There are some difficult people, and this is where
Hmm.
I talk about I make this analogy sometimes, and I don't worry about what people think within the community, and I say that's the lived experience part of me where I get to use it to my advantage. But I have to say there's a truth to everything, right? If I'm in a partnership and I pretend that my BPD symptoms, especially where I am in my journey, right? In the beginning or in any partnership, like I pretend they're not a thing and I walk around like my shit don't stink and my abandonment issues and my rejection sensitivity issues and all this stuff is not spilling all over my partner and he's not feeling and he doesn't matter, then I'm not pretending it's not a burden for the people around me. So there's accountability to all of it. So I
Yeah.
say, don't get offended by the things I'm saying. Understand your symptoms, understand the diagnosis, but don't, like you're saying, don't use these things against me like a crutch, like you know who I am. Can you understand the symptoms you're individually dealing with? Because, like you, Pete, like me, Melanie, we're all individually dealing with stuff. So
Hmm.
stop walking around like the world's not masking. We all walk around like, oh, I'm Miss Perfect and I'm Miss. No, you're not. Let's open up that door. No, you're not. You're feeling rejected. We all have these unconscious belief systems that are haunting us. So, what is it? So, yeah, I understand. Don't use it as a crutch, but use the symptoms to understand how to alleviate your freedom from it. So, what I mean by the analogy is, for example, am I in a movie scene and everybody else is around me and they don't matter? There were many portions and many people who have the diagnosis, like you're saying, they're not understanding and coherent. And that crutch is like, whether it's, oh, poor me. No, there are people around you who are supportive. There are people around you who are also suffering from it. They're also feeling your intensity so much and they're feeling all of this. So there's so many sides to the coin, right?
Yeah.
Because let me ask you a question. Let
Yeah.
me
Go ahead.
ask the interviewer a
Let's go.
question.
Let's do it. Game on.
It's like we suffer from anxiety, right?
Hmm.
Does that not affect the people around you too? And we have to own this, right? Because we don't know how to deal with the symptomology. Then it also, the people who love us are going, I'm here for you, but I'm also feeling it. It's called co-regulating. We co-regulate with our partners. And if our partners are also feeling anxious, it's because what energy is felt. So
Hmm.
I know if my partner is anxious, what's going to happen to me? I'm anxious as fuck too. So we got to know together how to work with each other. So it's almost like, yes, a crutch is one thing, but how can we work together so we don't shame each other into a disastrous mess here?
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
very good point. Yeah, really good point there, though. And I don't think a lot of people think of it like that, though. They just see it as, oh, they're being difficult, or they just don't understand. Like, one has mental systems and one other one doesn't. But a lot of times we forget about the person, the other side of the coin, too, the one that's having to deal with them. I feel like we don't get ourselves educated enough, and we don't educate enough people on mental health disorders just so people understand. Like, these are things that people deal with. And stop demonizing people for some of these like really scary ones. Like, it just really makes me disheartened a little bit because then you see people get like go out, start sharing their stories on the internet. Very bad place if you're not okay with criticism because we all know it's a hard place to be, man. And the things these people say to people it's just disgusting. It's like, you don't understand, so then we're gonna judge somebody for that. Like, come on, man. Like, stop giving these guys a hard time for saying something. It's the same thing with alcoholics, though. And anybody, any kind of addict that's coming back from it, like, they still treat people like trash, but they don't understand that these people are not the same person they were before. They're trying to do better, and your constant put downs aren't helping them.
No, and it's so interesting you brought this up. I was dealing with this with a client today. We are talking about emotional capacity to move on when the people around you are projecting their emotions onto you, and you almost feel, some people feel guilty for feeling joy in the face of other people feeling pain, and being like, how can you feel happy while I'm feeling this way? Or, and how can you hold space for people and feel pain? And it's like, if you think about it, at the same moment a baby's being born, a baby is dying. And what I mean by that
Hmm.
is there's this two late levels of consciousness are always happening. And it's a beautiful mess, this world. And what I mean by that is we're holding ourselves always like, e, like all the time. I have to feel guilty because somebody else's shtick is holding me there. But the point is that I'm really trying to make here is somebody else's inability to feel because they're uncomfortable feeling, or they tell you how to feel, when you know deep down in your heart, that's not right. We all have this intuitive emotional capacity. Just because you're a deep feeler or you're deeply sensitive doesn't give somebody else the right to take that away from you. And just because that system has been going forever, whether it's your parent, your sister, somebody who's 20 years senior to you, they might not have the right method. And we're so quick to dismember ourselves and entangle ourselves into a mess because somebody told us so, or because somebody projected that emotion onto us. So this is where I always talk about higher levels of discernment. Where are you getting your information? Why aren't you allowed to feel joy just because they projected that onto you? This is where it's very important for boundaries, important to know your own self-love in the capacity that holding space for somebody else, but also you're allowed to give yourself permission to be joyful, permission to feel and move forward. Because the whole world, if they could have it their way, if they were suffering and there people, they'd be like, no, don't. This
Right?
is how I
Exactly.
feel. And that's not fair. Because it's just nobody knows. Again, that remember we bring it back to that first conversation. It's a screen thin line to what you really know somebody's dealing with and how they got to that joy and how much pain they're really dealing with as well as that joy. So if go fucking smile, Pete, if you want to. If someone's trying to project onto you,
Right.
or you're a recovering addict and they are too, just because it's their opinion, just let them.
Yeah.
Like Mel Robbins, just let them. You know what I mean? So
No, no, I agree. I agree 100% with you. Though I did want to ask you though about the BPD Society of British Columbia and Emotions Matter. That's really interesting. What is that exactly?
um the founder, like Deb and Bailey, have you met them? They'd be
I don't.
awesome. You could
I
talk
don't
to
think
them.
I have
And
met. I don't think I've met them
well,
yet. I'd love to.
I'll after this I'll introduce you like to them, and then you can connect with them. They're a nonprofit.
Awesome.
um yeah, and they run support groups, they run DBT skills groups, they have parents and people with BPD support groups. Fantastic. They're out of Canada, virtual support groups. And I also volunteered for them for a bit, but I volunteered for Emotions Matter, which is virtual as well, and another NGO, a nonprofit. All great. But I'll introduce you guys. I'll connect you.
Heck yeah, that's
So
awesome.
yeah.
No, no, but I wanted to go off topic just right bit for that because I was just curious. But I mean, like I said though, like your mind over matter therapy practice, like you've covered so many things, Melanie. Why? What made you do this? Was this just things you just discovered over time? You were like, all right, well, this would be kind of cool to add in to kind of branch out to cover more things, because some people specialize in only certain things, but yours seems to cover a broad range of things.
I basically, what I deal with mainly, my niche obviously is specializing in treating individuals with the diagnosis or the symptoms.
Hmm.
So if somebody comes to me, they've been dealing with the symptoms that fall under, because I also dealt with depression and anxiety and ADHD. there are things I will not deal with, and I will either lead those people to go elsewhere. But also with my spiritual practices, those aren't things that I'm doing within Mind Over Borderline. Those are things I train in and do on my own time. And people are always laughing because when I do those things, it's supposed to be for me time and hobbies, but they also fall under psychological assessment. They also fall under training. It's like, when do I just take a break? And that's been a huge thing for me. I should probably be breaking. Then sitting on Sunday, I did 10 hours of training and dream work shamanic training.
That's
And it's
interesting.
like, yeah, and it's like I'm sitting there training on a Sunday instead of just relaxing. I really like using, I would say we all have gifts. It's like for you speaking and using your brain and using your mind and your body. It's been hard for me using my voice. It's been hard for me just to kind of sit there, right? My husband's like, there's got to be days and seasons where you rest a bit. I like to keep active
Yeah.
and like to keep moving my brain cells and stuff. So yeah.
So let's dig into the spiritual thing a little bit. I know you mentioned it. Is it something you've always been big into, or is it something that you kind of fell into? Because not a lot of people don't really understand that realm, and I've had a few guests on that talk spiritual. I love talking about these things because it's interesting because you get to learn new things. You get to explore new paths. I remember when energy healing was introduced to me, I had no idea what that was until then. And then I find out I'm energy sensitive, so I went down that rabbit hole, and the spiritual thing I think is interesting because a lot of people always want to give it a label for something, but I think it's really interesting the way it works for a lot of people. A lot of people see a lot of great things that come out of these different practices that they've done. So what has your experience been like?
Um, it's been a mixed bag of a lot of, it's funny, you'd think I'd get a lot of stigma within the BPD community. I've gotten a lot more from people that you would think would be more accepting. When you come from, you have to hide more than you'd like to, right?
Yeah.
It's like, even I'm holding Lemurian crystal and my
Hmm.
crystals here, but it's it's hard. It's hard for people. Okay, so let me explain this to you so I don't chopple on my throat chakra here and go, well, the mixed bag of signals I get, people will think I know everything about a person because of what I see. Because there's Mel BPD, Mel this, Mel that.
Hmm.
However, there's been portions of my life that have been completely taken away or dismembered because I've had to learn how to let go, let God. I've had to learn how to surrender. Again, higher levels of discerning what I can share. Like, for example, this is an open podcast. What can I share? What
Pretty
is
much whatever you like.
safe? No, with you, but what is safe to the outside world,
Oh,
right?
no, I get you. Yep.
What is safe to give out, what is safe to share. Even shamanism being one of the most ancient and oldest practices, people don't even know you can't call yourself a shaman. I would never even say I'm a shaman. I'm a shamanic practitioner. They're the use of tools, and even to train and do things like that, and to be able to be trained in journeying and divination. People hear these words and automatically they think of things like terrible. And that's actually on a very beautiful thing. I help heal and retrieve and journey and get people places closer to receiving help through trauma,
Hmm.
healing parts in places like lower world, places that they can't get to. It's stuff I do in everyday talk therapy, but it's it's very hard for people to connect to these types of places or for them to believe. It's like I read a quote today, Corinthians. It doesn't even have to be from the Bible for anyone to understand what I'm about to say. So we are always of good courage. We know that while we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord, for we walk by faith, not by sight. So basically, for anyone to understand anything that in a collective sense that I've dealt with my whole life, they've always had to be seeing it in real life. I need to see this. You need to prove it to me. I need to see it, the hard evidence. Even if you talk about evidence-based therapy, look at it, evidence-based therapies. And what hurts me a lot is how little spirituality is celebrated in the world. and how quick people are to jump on somebody that shares, I love God, I love shamanism, I love Oracle, I love this stuff. I heard this sign, I saw this number 17 times, I hold this crystal, I'm charged with energy, I feel this vibration, oh my God. And like, right? And so we say
Mm-hmm.
these things, but we pass over it like it's nothing. We need to see the evidence. And so when I started leaning into it many times in my life, I was like, there's no such fucking thing as a coincidence. Why
Mm-hmm.
are all these things? And people used to say to me, why is that happening to you so easily? I'm like, nothing has happened to me easily. I've had a tough fucking life.
Yeah.
But if I lean in and I manifest and I work hard and I lean in, I manifest, I work hard. I've had some of the worst things, but I leaned in not by sight, but by faith. And some people want to go, oh, well, do you believe in God? Why has this happened to bad people? Why is this happening? And why is, and so they want to get into these 3D arguments with me right in my face. And I go, I don't want to argue in the flesh with you. I don't need to argue. Again, that's egoic. Ease God out. I don't need to ease God out right now because it's a feeling and it's a sensation, it's a vibration that's taken me places that I'll never need to explain to you because I'm not trying to prove to you. I have so much humility to the fact that there are things that I haven't been able to explain that have lifted me out of the amount of nervous system dysregulation, peace, help, extraordinary measures that are unexplainable. And they're beyond the tools, they're beyond the trainings, they're beyond this. And I think that whether it's shamanism, whether it's somebody going to leaning into chakra healing,
Mm-hmm.
Reiki, added a breath work that I've done in sessions where I get visions, prophetic visions. It doesn't matter if somebody believes me or not. These are my own healing for my own healing. And so when I talk about eclectic and individualized treatments, I help a client, whether it's my clients I see or myself. I don't believe there's one measurement of healing for a single human on the planet. And I never will. And so that being said, Pete might come to me at one chapter in his life, and the best form of therapy is CBT. Just maybe he needs 6 weeks quick in and out. Then he's like, that was good, but he really needs to go on a men's retreat and see a medicine healer. I don't know, right? We don't know
Yeah.
what Pete needs. But that doesn't mean that it's just this one thing that helped him on his journey. It was a compilation of Pete's whole life. And so I'm very against that we're in this world that everybody is set in stone
Mm-hmm.
against the opinion of this one thing. And so I'm very, can you be an open channel to receiving that maybe you don't know what you don't know? And it's not,
Yeah.
oh, I just saw an alien. Oh, I'm a psychic. Oh, I'm a seer. That's all egoic. I'm a past life this. That's all egoic. Detached from that for a second, what is this? What is this all for you, showing you right now?
Yeah.
So it's very vast. I could talk about this for like hours. And
Listen,
again,
I
it
can listen to
sounds
you
very,
talk about this for
yeah,
hours because I,
yeah,
I enjoy listening to this stuff. This is great.
yeah.
And when you mentioned crystals too, I didn't really understand those until I met my ex-wife and she introduced me to the thing and the whole principle behind it, tarot cards, all that. A lot of that stuff people don't realize. Like I've had a couple of those readings, and let me tell you how close those things were. It's hard to deny what those are saying. And I agree. I don't think there's just one method for anybody because like I don't just use talk therapy. I do a bunch of other things. I meditate and I talk to my inner self.
Yes.
And all these different things I've learned from different guests on the show that have come on. Actually, season 2, we met a gentleman named Julian that him and I were talking about my issues that I had with my mom because she abandoned me when I was 10. So like dealing with that inner child thing, like I tell people I talk to my inner child and people look at me weird. I'm like, listen, I don't care if you believe me or not, but what I'm doing works for me. It's getting me places. People are
Yes.
noticing that I'm different. Eat my own kids who I've never had a relationship with, hardly ever. After we separated a while ago, I went and saw my daughter graduate this past week. Never
Oh
would have
my God,
happened
that's so beautiful. Yes.
had I not gone to the path I went down, I would have never been in that situation. She invited me to come, and then one of my younger daughters was like, "Listen, Dad, you didn't seem like the same person that we seen before," which says a lot because I've been through. I told her, "Yeah, I've been through a lot. There's a lot of things I've done. I've done a lot of owning up to things I've done. There's multiple steps of things that I've been doing." to get to this point, and the fact that they're seeing it says already enough right there, because they're seeing the fact that I'm not the same person. I'm different, and since doing the show, I've got to meet different people to try different things, and I always think there's always different things, tons of different techniques I use to every time. It depends. Depends situationally what I'm in for my anxiety. So when it kicks up, sometimes I'll vent. Sometimes I'll just start telling it out loud to see what it is because it sounds stupid to me. Sometimes I'll journal. I have an anxiety journal. I have all these different methods I use. I use breath work a lot of times to refocus. I do a lot of grounding techniques. I go outside and walk in the grass. Or my friend Kat likes to tell me go hug a tree all the time, and I laugh at her every time because it makes me chuckle because I know she means nothing but well out of that.
Well, dryad, you got to protect your energy. And that's what I was.
Hmm.
So you just mentioned dryad. When I say dryad, there's a goddess, but tree protection. So there are actual people who come together and they talk about tree protection and
Hmm.
tree energy and imagining you're inside a tree, protected by tree energy and Gaia energy,
Hmm.
whatever energy. But there's a beautiful book and it was called Spiritual Hygiene. It came out, I think this year, or last year, but doesn't matter about the book, but I actually talk a lot about spiritual hygiene, but more
Hmm.
for my clients in an evidence-based way. But if we could turn it into a spiritual way, I do a ton of spiritual hygiene, and spiritual hygiene could look different for so many different people. That could be from cleansing baths to Palo Santo to saging to actually imagining white light around you to
Yeah.
boundary. Let's turn it to evidence. There's a million more. Let's turn it to evidence-based spiritual practices, boundaries, learning
Hmm.
to say no, picking yourself first, like literally confidence, embodiment, standing up, the Superman pose. This is all spiritual hygiene and people don't know this. And for me, the thing is when you don't know any of this stuff, I used to joke around, what's a no-see-um? A no-see-um is a bug that you can barely see that can get through filters. That was me my whole life, where I had these archons or these no-see-ums or these almost invisible detectors that monitoring me all the time. And I'm like, you could feel when you're in your higher level intuitive, your higher level, you can start to feel that energy, or you invite it in more because you're highly empathic, you're
Hmm.
sensitive.
I'm
People are
sensitive
attracted
energy.
to the light and they're probably attracted to your energy. So this is where you have to up your spiritual hygiene, or you up the way that you understand it. And
Hmm.
to be honest, you attract more of that. So you have to up more of it when you're working as a therapist, a healer, an empath. So whatever your methods work, you have to up them. And a lot of the time, this is uncomfortable for the people around you too, who want to be able to get in. So the no-see-ums are going to get in more. They're going to knock in more. And this is for a chronic recovering people pleaser, for somebody who's always let that come in. What does that mean for you? And so when you do that and you're not keeping up with it, you can feel sometimes people will say to me, why did my energy just shift out of nowhere? And they'll say things like that. And they'll be like, it must be a BPD thing. People used to joke to me and be like, well, let's check that. Let's start to check these things and start
Hmm.
to actually question these things. Is it? Was it a trigger? Was it the people? What was it? The places? Like we have to start understanding energy is everything.
It is.
Keeping up with your hygiene is everything. Your sleep, all of these things are protection barriers. And so that's all actually in DBT as well. Your vulnerabilities. Are you susceptible this morning? Like, did you get enough sleep? Like me, I just had 5 sessions I jumped on. I might be a little bit dissociative right now, a bit more floaty. I'm not
Yeah.
going to lie to you though, because I can ground myself with you, my feet on the ground. I could talk to you. I can hold my crystals. I'm more self-aware than normal, but I used to run support groups and be floating half the time. And I had a mentor say this to me. She was like, she channeled this. She was like, you float a lot because of your people pleasing. You try to be everything for everyone but yourself, and you would lose yourself in that in a lot of these support groups. And I was like, she's like, you do a good job, but you lose a lot and you would be like floating. And I was like, that was happening a lot. So it's like, you're better one-on-one, or you're better if you spent a lot of time with people going into reclusive, hermity energy for a while, because you're the kind of person that's an extrovert, introvert, call it an omnivert, like a mix of the two. And so learning again, spiritual hygiene, how to deal with what you're good at, and all these things are very important for you.
Yeah, I'm energy sensitive, and I figured that out when I met somebody that called herself the energy alchemist, and we discussed that, and I was like, I had this sensation I could never explain. And she's like, "Oh, that's you feeling energy." So I've been honing it ever since I met her. So I've gotten pretty good at it, honestly. Like I could pick up the energy of people, even sitting here talking to people. I still pick up within a few. I could very few questions, I can start figuring out if I really like these people or not. And and it was always something I can never explain, but then it made sense after I met Melanie and she had told me. She happened to be Melanie too. Is another Melanie, by the way. She was really
Stop!
cool.
Yeah, it's
That
cool.
that was really cool though. You know what I mean? Like, and then I found out that I'm an empath too, which made a lot of sense too. Why I'm really sensitive. And I noticed after some interviews I would do, man, I'd be doing like some days I'd do like 5 or 6 in a row, and I'd just be drained after certain conversations. Especially narcissist conversations always drained me because it was hit so close to home for me. Because I dealt with a narcissistic mom, my partner at
Dang.
the time, my daughter, my mother, the children, she was very narcissistic at times too, and and it was interesting when I found that out because, like I said, when I started doing the show originally, I set out to make mental talk more about and I was using my own personal journey. And then I finally started opening up more about myself later on and notice the conversation shift. And then I get more interesting people. So I'd always look for something new. Oh, I don't know what that is. Let me invite that person, Reiki, energy healing, this, that, just everything I could find. I just wanted. And the funny thing was, a lot of them came in trios. So energy healer 1, 2, and 3 for that day would come in. It was so funny because it's like, whoa, wait a minute. This is interesting. Why do I keep getting these three, these people in little droves of things? So it was interesting when you said crystals, because I'm like, I know what those are too. I love the principle of crystals are very interesting too, and all those kind of things. Those all kind of hit home for me. And like I said, I could sit and listen to you talk about spiritual things all day. Like before, 20 years ago, I never would even believed anything. And it was way it was presented to me all those times, but now it's like I have a more sense of curiosity to a lot of things, and things like that too. So when you bring up certain subjects, it's like, oh, I'm pinging over here like, man, now I got to go look into some of this stuff and see what it is because I want to know more
Yeah.
because then I can bring more information to the table. The funny thing though, Melanie, is people ask me, and actually we get together with some friends. I get together on Wednesday. They asked me this question last time they saw me. They said, "So Pete, do you prepare for any of your interviews?" I'm like, "No, they're all 100% me." Like, I'll be completely honest with you. I don't prepare for 90% of these interviews. I'll look up some information about the people, and then everything else is just off the top of my head of just things I've learned. I've had conversations with neuroscientists and everything else, and I find it all fascinating, like especially the spiritual side of things, because it's just so fascinating how close it is to what people don't realize how much it walks hand in hand. But people are like, "Oh, well, I believe in this." Well, it doesn't matter what you put in place of that; you still believe in something. Doesn't matter. However you look at it, the Greeks had multiple gods, the Indians had multiple gods, the Romans had what I mean?
Yes.
It doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. If you look at it at the end of the day, there's that one higher power, whether it be whatever you want it to be. But people tend to just get mad because they don't understand. But it's like, listen, y'all are the same. What are you guys getting mad about? Like, I don't get it. So when
And
you
I
say people frown upon you when they
yeah,
when you say things about spirituality, I'm like, it's all the same thing, guys. What are you talking
it's
about?
not and it's not all people per se, and that's actually been my biggest journey, steering away and learning how to come back. And remember I said, "Oh,
Hmm.
my throat chakra," right? And Kundalini opening and all this stuff. The journey, and thank you for everything you just shared. It was beautiful, Pete. The opening and the embodiment of just being yourself,
Hmm.
that's been the most disheartening thing for my spiritual journey. I think coming back home to the truest version of ourself, whatever that is, has been my journey. And I think the hardest part for me has been learning that it, like you said, it does not matter at all what you believe in,
Yeah,
as
exactly.
long as you believe in something. And there's always going to be, whether, and when I said the word archon, these are the negative forces on the planet, and we all have them. And so if it's, you believe in this lifetime, past lifetimes, reincarnated lifetimes, right? Like this is what happens to people. We get so stuck.
Hmm.
Um, but what we mostly get stuck on, especially in the BPD communities, is other people and being othered and all of these types of things. And for me, losing my voice throughout my whole life to other people don't do this, you're too much, you're too that, yo, don't say this, don't say that, don't be this, don't be that. I'm like, well, I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't.
Exactly.
And so why don't I just be? Because our dharma, which our purpose is to just be. But we run around with swords in our hands all the time, fighting battles that we don't need to. What I realize, it's not my battle to fight.
Yeah.
It's never been my battle to fight. And when I put that suit of armor on, all I'm supposed to be doing is protecting myself just to be. And I'm not trying to keep putting on all these suits, protecting myself, fighting all these people, trying to get approval, trying to not get rejected. I'm going to get rejected regardless. So someone who watches this is going to say, oh, well, she was too this. What the fuck is on her head? Who the fuck does she think she is? And guess what? I don't give a shit.
Right.
You're judging me because you're judging me at the emotional capacity of where you're at. If you're judging me, that's actually a reflection of you. And so I keep learning that every time I go out into the world where I'm putting myself out there, when I'm scared, when I'm confused, if I feel lost, at least I'm trying. Because my dharma is just to be, meaning I'm just supposed to show up the best version every day as I can. So those days where you're doing 5, 6 episodes, I'd still tell you, like myself, let's stop doing that. We keep burning out and we don't need to do that.
I've cut it down since then, for
cut it
sure.
down.
Trust
Yeah.
me, but
Like
yeah.
cut it down. You're already awesome. But these things are an amalgamation of our life. We keep learning that we already are enough. Every single one of us is awesome. We're all special, but we seem to keep forgetting that. The greatest message I ever got from God, I'm not separate from God. I'm God's creation. I am beautiful. And every time I say I am shit, I'm actually projecting an image that God never created. Meaning I'm an image made from God, whether God to you is Gaia, like you said, goddess, whatever religion, whatever this, but I am monad. I am all created. I'm sovereign, free of all massacred perceptions of anything that anyone wants to say. That does not make me cocky just because I am confident in what he created. It doesn't make me perfect. He knew he didn't make me perfect. He, she, mother, female, God-like, whatever. We all have our different beliefs. But what I did my whole life was made myself small based on othering myself, based on other people's perceptions, because I didn't see myself in divine light. With Christ consciousness, I'll tell you one thing, because that's a really profound practice I try to do. I see everyone with divine love. I see everyone perfect the way that they were created, not as the mistakes they see themselves in, even their bad behaviors, because I see that as a chance for them to rectify within themselves. And I know people are like, that's so lame. You just forgive everyone. And I'm like, yeah, because if I don't, I'm holding myself with anger every day. Do I trip up on things? Yeah, I'm human still.
Yeah.
But I'm also more, and it doesn't make me better. I just see beyond a lot of the things that were holding my ego down. Meaning I've been stuck here. I'm stuck here. Everything that keeps me stuck, I try to rip away at it. Why am I stuck here? And so I'm constantly, why am I so obsessed with psychology and spirituality? I'm on a constant surge to get better and to feel more free, because I don't like feeling shackled by anxiety, by depression, by feeling stuck. There are those days I spent years of my life stuck, years of my life in bed, years of my life fucking wanting to die. And I don't want to do that. So if somebody else has a version of me, that's their version, but I don't want that version to be the one I go out with. I just don't want it to be that version I go out with.
I love it. I love it. Well, Melanie, as we get ready to start wrapping up this interview, I have those 2 questions I'm going to ask you. Okay. So the first one is actually music related. So you're going to like this one. So my question for you is, if your mental health had a song, what would you say that song would be?
Oh, that's hard. I type of years in my life is still, what's that song? I keep singing in my head. And I feel a hope for an explanation. What's up? 4 Non-Blondes.
There you
keep
go.
singing in my, and I'll say, hey, yeah.
That's there.
That one. There's a few ones. Like that's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
There's a few. I'll text you some more, or I'll write you some
Yeah.
more. But
Hell
that's
yeah, that'd be awesome.
I don't know why. Again, spirits channeling that. Spirit guides are saying sing that one, so that's one of them. There's a
I
few
love
more
it.
that would come, but that one, yeah.
All right, Melanie. Now, the main question, and before we start wrapping this up, okay, is for you is if you could break this stigma about mental health, what would you say that one thing would be? Now, you can think of
Honestly,
like something that drives you nuts, something that pisses you off, something that you're just like, hey, can you all stop believing these
yeah.
things?
No, again, I think the number one thing we touched on it beautifully over and over again is that every single person was created individually. So when you go to stigmatize anyone, right? Think about it from the basis that every person is exceptionally unique. So there's nothing that you know about a person. When you think you know, you have no fucking idea.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
love it. Melanie,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here today. This
Thank
was
you,
awesome.
Pete.
I was so excited when I saw your name coming up and I knew this was coming. Let me tell you, I've been talking about this all week. It's like, oh my God, guys, I'm gonna have
Uh,
Millie Goldman come on. And they're like, who's that? I'm like,
yes,
you have an
Pete,
idea?
Pete,
You gotta go
Pete.
check on this person. So,
That's
Melanie,
my Pete
before we
Nibs.
start closing this thing out, why don't you tell
Yes.
everybody where they can find you? Where's the best place to find you? You know, I know you're on Instagram. I know you
Yeah,
have the website for the practice and everything. Let them have it.
definitely. I'm on my website has all the links. So the www.mindoverborderline.ca has the Facebook. The Facebook. Like when I'm 90. The Facebook. It has the Facebook. I'm 90 and I'm Russian. It has Facebook and LinkedIn and all the jazz. So, and yeah, you could find me. You can email me if you have any questions. If there's anybody here that needs help or resources. I'm almost on my resource page for the website, which is awesome. And some really exciting new things are coming up that I'm not allowed to share right now. But I'm not just saying that as a drop. Like there are some very exciting things coming up.
That's
So
awesome. Well, Melanie, thank
yeah.
you so much for being here today. It was an honor
Thank
having you. I was
you,
so
Pete.
excited.
Me
You're welcome to
too.
come back anytime you like. You just hit me up.
And
We'll
I
clear the
will.
schedule.
I
We'll
will.
clear the schedule until everybody
Yes.
get out the way.
Yes. Exactly.
And with that
Okay.
being said, guys, we're going to wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. You know where to find me? I'm Pete vs. Anxiety. I'm X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify all the way down to Pandora Radio. And I was always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you could do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety signing off saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health?